Astonishingly, the millionaire comes to the rescue as crowd laughs at mom and son. Emily Carter's breath billowed in icy clouds, clinging to her ragged coat as she sat on the chipped wooden bench in the crowded city park. Her son, little Max, tugged at her sleeve, shivering under a thin jacket too worn to stop the cold. Around them, the late afternoon faded fast, gray skies swallowing the last amber rays of a reluctant autumn sun. The park was a jumble of sounds. Hustling feet hit the pavement. Distant car horns mixed with the crunch of dry leaves under careless boots. The crowd didn't stop. Instead, it circled them, like vultures drawn to some sorry show. "Look at them," a harsh voice sneered from the edge of the gathering. "Still begging for spare change, the pathetic duo." Laughter burst out, sharp and cruel. Faces twisted into smirks, some pointing fingers. People whispered, eyes darting away as if embarrassed. But no one stepped in. Emily's chest tightened. The lump in her throat twisted like a live thing. Her hand shook, clutching Max's small fingers so hard they went numb. She swallowed hard, but the salt from tears made her throat burn. She could feel every pair of cold eyes judging her. The biting breeze felt like a slap against her face. Then the voice came. A low, calm tone cut through the laughter like a blade. People turned. Heads snapped toward a tall figure stepping forward from the crowd's edge. It was James Thornton, the billionaire no one saw. The man who avoided cameras, avoided crowds, avoided people altogether. Known for mysterious disappearances and rumors swirling louder than his name. Yet here he was, walking through the leather-clad suits and hurried commuters, with sharp purpose, like a shadow made of powerful silence. James stopped beside Emily, eyes scanning the crowd with something fierce. A hidden storm under crystal calm. "Enough," he said, voice steady and cold. "You have no right." The crowd froze. Mouths open, laughter dying on their lips. Whispers turned to stunned silence. A few dared a glance upward, as if expecting the earth to split or something impossible to happen. But this was real. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Relief flooded her, wild and sudden, mixing with something new, a fierce pride. Here was a man who could wipe away their scorn with a simple word. And yet, something in his eyes flickered, shadows lurking beneath the surface. Secrets, pain, a warning barely seen. James glanced at Max, his gaze softening for a brief second, then hardened again. "Don't listen to them," he said, voice just loud enough. "You're stronger than this." Around them, the crowd shifted. Murmurs blossomed like wildfire. Questions hung in the air. Why did this man care? What did he want? And who was watching him from the edges of that cold park, waiting for a chance to strike? Powerful forces that thrived on fear, silence, and control. Forces James had tangled with before, and that were creeping closer now. The light dimmed further. The park, once filled with chaos, seemed to hold its breath. Emily looked at James, half thankful, half terrified. An unexpected alliance had sparked, fragile as the flickering street lamps awakening in the dusk. But the question burned hotter than the chill. Could they trust him? Or was this rescue just the beginning of a darker, more dangerous journey neither of them could see yet? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just quickly check that red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're at it, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know each incredible person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Emily's eyes stayed locked on James, the newest pulse of hope beating inside her chest. His voice still echoed. You're stronger than this. Max clung tighter to her coat, cheeks red from cold and fear. The crowd shifted uneasily, some lowering their heads, others still watching, waiting. Then the air shattered, a sharp crack, like a whip. Heads snapped toward the sound. A single gunshot. Gasps exploded in the frozen park. Shouts, screams. Emily's breath caught as everyone scattered, pushing and pulling, a chaotic wave crashing over them. She dropped to her knees, clutching Max, who was trembling violently. Her heart slammed. Where? From whom? Why now? James was the first to move. His face was stone, cold, unreadable. He pushed through the mob with terrible focus, heading toward the source of the shot. Then, something impossible happened. From behind James, a sharp, ragged figure stepped forward. The rough outline of a woman in stained clothes. But her eyes burned with something raw and terrible. The crowd parted as she raised a trembling hand, and in it, a small, crumpled police badge. "My name's Detective Sarah Bell," she said, voice cracked and urgent. "James Thornton, you're under arrest." Emily froze. Max whimpered. James stopped mid-step, his face draining color. A slow, cruel smile bloomed on Detective Bell's lips. "Surprised?" she pushed, eyes hard as ice. "We've been watching you, tied you to everything. The illegal deals, the cover-ups, the disappearances nobody dared to ask about." Her gaze flicked to Emily, dead serious. "And you're deeper in this than you know." Emily's throat closed tight. What did this mean? James? A criminal? A liar? "Why, what are you talking about?" she whispered, voice trembling. The detective stepped closer, voice dropping low, deadly serious. "That boy, Max, he's not just some forgotten kid on the streets. He's the key to everything, but you don't see it yet. And that's dangerous. For all of you." James squared his shoulders, eyes blazing now. Not the quiet savior anymore, but a man cornered. "You don't know what you're getting into, Belle. This isn't a game." Behind them, the crowd's murmurs rose into a roaring storm. Cameras flashed, phones out, recording every second. The world had shifted on its axis. Emily and Max weren't the victims anymore. They were sitting at the heart of something dark and huge, something far worse than hunger or cold. Suddenly, Emily saw it, her own hands shaking, her breath erratic. The crisp, clean lines of James's suit were stained now, the calm mask cracking. And then Max pulled her hand sharply. His small eyes were wide, fixed on James. "Mom, he's afraid of him," Max whispered. Emily's blood ran cold. James, the man who saved them, who told her not to listen to the crowd. He held a secret, thicker and heavier than the chill in the air. A secret tangled up with Max, with her, with the shadow that Detective Bell stepped out from. Emily asked, barely voice, "James, who are you?" But he didn't answer. Behind him, the police closed in. And as the crowd parted, Emily felt the ground fall beneath her feet. What had she welcomed into her life? A hero, or something much darker? The night swallowed the park. The real story was just beginning. And this time, no one would look away. Emily's knees hit the cold pavement hard. The crowd spun around her, a whirl of stunned faces and whispered breaths. The flashing cameras stabbed into her skull like white-hot needles. The ache in her chest grew sharp and raw. Max curled tighter against her side, clutching her coat like it was a lifeline. James Thornton stood motionless, the police closing in like shadows, hungry for blood. His eyes darted once to Emily, then hardened in a way that pierced her guts. He looked less like a savior now, and more like a man who'd been waiting for this moment, waiting to be caught. Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to shout, to scream, to run, but her voice stuck, stranded in a sea of silence. Then, the unexpected. Before any cuffs could click, the ragged woman, Detective Sarah Bell, sighed, a bitter sound that shook the air. "Wait," she said, but her voice was thinner now, warmer. "There's something you don't know." James's head snapped toward her, confusion flickering sharply for a heartbeat. The crowd leaned in, breaths held, senses sharpened. Sarah took a shaky step forward, eyes flicking nervously toward Max. Suddenly, with a speed no one expected, Emily felt the small hand of her son slide out of hers. Max broke free and darted straight toward James. "Wait!" Emily cried, heart pounding. But Max ignored her. He ran into James's arms, and James caught him like the world depended on it. For one moment, the harsh police lights softened, touched by a silent understanding. Then, Max's small face tilted up, and what he whispered ripped everything apart. "Daddy." The word exploded through the chaos. Gasps echoed. Faces blanched. The crowd froze again, caught in a stunned silence, so heavy it felt like the sky had cracked. Emily's blood ran cold. James's eyes widened for a second, raw shock flashing, before shutting down into something unreadable. Detective Bell's expression flickered. Then in the blink of an eye, she pushed James hard. shouts erupting behind her. "Lies!" she spat. "He's a traitor, a monster hiding in plain sight." But James held Max tightly, voice soft but fierce. "I'm not who you think I am." Emily stumbled backward, heart pounding like a war drum. She stared at the man who'd saved her, who'd threatened to drag her into darkness. All at once, everything shattered. "Max, your father," she whispered, disbelief curling in her throat. "But how? Why didn't you tell me?" Max looked up, eyes wide and trembling. "Mom, he's been hiding. He left us." But he never stopped watching. The crowd's whispers swelled into a roar. "He's her kid? Is that why you say Max is the key? Who really is James Thornton?" Sirens wailed louder now, drawing closer. And then, something new. Behind Detective Bell, a man stepped forward, sharp, cold, and completely unexpected. "Enough," he said, voice dripping with danger. Emily stared. The man's face was familiar. Older, with stern eyes. But impossibly, it was James's twin. "What the hell?" Emily gasped. The twin's lips twisted. "You were lied to," he said, looking at James with venom. "He's the scapegoat, the fall guy. I run things now." Emily's legs trembled. James shook his head, holding Max tighter. "No," James said. "You don't understand. This isn't about power or money. It's about keeping Max safe, protecting him from what I once was, what I might become." Max clung to James as if they were his only anchor in a sinking world. The twin smiled, cold and cruel. "Then it's time you both answer for what happened, for what you hid." Emily's heart slammed again. The truth had flipped inside out, like the ground beneath her was endless and swallowing whole. She looked from James to his twin, then down at Max, her son, her heart, her fragile hope. The park felt colder than ever. Shadows moved closer, whispering of secrets darker than she dared imagine. And somewhere deep inside, Emily knew, this wasn't the rescue story she thought it was. This was only the beginning of the nightmare. The real questions screamed louder than any gunshot. Who were they, really? And how deep did their secrets run? The night swallowed them all, and the world wasn't ready for what came next. Emily's legs trembled, barely holding her weight, as the crowd's whispers grew into a suffocating roar. The Max clung to James like he was a lifeline, and maybe he was. But the space between them had thickened with shadows, with doubt. James's twin stepped forward, eyes hard and dangerous. "You've been played," he hissed. "James here is the fall guy, the puppet for something bigger." Emily's heart slammed against her ribs, but before she could even process those words, a sudden, piercing scream shattered the tension. High, raw, desperate, everyone turned. A figure stumbled through the crowd, pale and trembling, a woman with wild eyes and hands shaking so hard she looked close to collapse. "Stop," she gasped. "Please don't trust him. It was a woman Emily had never seen before. Her voice cracked as she pushed forward, her eyes locked on James. He's not the savior. He's the reason everything happened. You think this is about Max? No, it's about what James did, what he hid. Emily's throat closed tight. The crowd parted like waves. A sea of shocked faces pushed back. "What do you mean?" Emily asked, voice barely above a whisper. The woman collapsed to her knees, clutching something small and beaten in her fist, a tattered locket. "Look," she whispered, opening it. Inside was a faded photo, a smiling little boy, and it wasn't Max. Emily's stomach twisted. "Who is that?" The woman's eyes ran wet. "That's my son. He disappeared 2 years ago. And James? James was the last one with him." A sudden cold snapped through the crowd. Murmurs became gasps. James's face twitched. But before he could speak, the woman's voice dropped low, fierce. "He's not just a man with secrets. He's a man chasing ghosts, trying to save a past that's already dead." Emily blinked, confused, terrified. Max suddenly tensed in James's arms, whispering with raw fright, "Mom, he lied about us, about everything." Emily's world tilted. Was this the real Max, her son, or someone else? Sirens wailed. Closer now. Then breaking through the chaos, a sudden deafening thud, metal against concrete, echoed from the edge of the park. Heads whipped toward the sound. There, slumped against the curb, blood pooling beneath a figure. Emily's eyes widened. It was the other James, the twin. His face was pale, twisted in shock, eyes wide and desperate. He jerked once, then slumped forward, lifeless. The crowd fell silent, breath caught in a painful pause. James, the man holding Max, froze, his jaw clenched tight, eyes darting between the fallen man and the woman on her knees. Emily's chest seized, the cold became unbearable. Then, a frantic whisper from Detective Bell, sharp and dark. "He's been poisoned, and I bet James here knows exactly who did it." Emily's head spun. The lines between good and bad, truth and lie, shattered like glass. "How deep does this go?" she breathed. "Who's really dangerous?" Max tugged hard at her coat. "Mom, I'm scared. Really scared." Emily swallowed past the lump, clutching him close. James looked down at Max, his face a mask of something unreadable. Hope? Regret? Or something darker still? The crowd watched, frozen. The real fight wasn't about money or power. It was about survival. About finding truth in a world built on lies. And now, one thing was clear. No one was safe. Not Emily, not Max, not even James. Because the poison was already spreading. And what happened next would change everything. Emily's breath came in ragged gasps. The grim silence following the twins' collapse felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. The cold was sharp, biting deeper, stealing warmth from her numb fingers, holding Max close. Detective Bell's voice dropped low and urgent. "He's been poisoned, and I bet James knows who did it." James's eyes flicked from the lifeless twin to Bell, then back at Max. Something raw passed over his face. Pain, regret, fear. His jaw clenched like he was holding back a storm inside. Emily's legs shook beneath her, the crowd's whispers swirling into a low growl around them. She wanted to scream, to pull Max away, but the night froze her in place. Then, a sudden screech, metal scraping against concrete, shattered the tense hush. Heads whipped toward the edge of the park. A battered ambulance had pulled up, flashing red and blue lights cutting through the gathering dark like knives. Paramedics rushed over, pushing their way through the crowd. Emily's heart hammered so loud she thought it might burst. Suddenly, the twins' eyes fluttered open, pupils wide, glassy. A hoarse groan escaped. The crowd gasped as the pale man, James's twin, struggled to speak. His lips parted, but no sound came, just a wet cough. James dropped Max slowly, hands trembling. He stepped closer, eyes wide, face strained. The twins' cracked voice was barely a breath. "Emily, Max, don't trust him." Emily's world shattered in that moment. Her breath caught. Tears stung fiercely. "Don't trust him," the twin repeated, voice rasping, eyes locking hard on James. James froze, as if struck. His face flickered. Rage, panic, something darker. Then, sudden cold calm. The woman with the locket stepped forward, voice shaking. What is he talking about?" Emily's gaze darted between the twins, back to Max. The boy clung to James, but looked confused, frightened. Suddenly, James's shoulders rose, and then his body jerked violently, like a puppet with cut strings. His eyes snapped shut. A low grunt escaped him. And then James collapsed forward. Emily screamed. Max sobbed. Detective Bell shouted for help, but before anyone could react, James's hand shot out, grasping Emily's wrist with terrifying strength. His eyes flew open, wild and unsteady. A whisper escaped his lips, sharp and chilling. "She's not your son." Emily froze so hard her blood turned to ice. What are you saying?" she stammered, panic clawing her throat. James dragged Max from her grip with an unnatural force. The boy screamed, struggling. James's face twisted in agony. "She's lying," James choked out, voice raw. "Max, he's not your child." Max's screams turned to panicked gasps. The crowd's murmurs turned vicious. Emily staggered back, heart hammering, breath shattering. Treacherous thoughts stormed through her mind. Was this the truth? Had everything she believed been a lie? Then Belle stepped forward, eyes sharp, voice cold. "The boy, Max, is a stolen child. The real son, he's been missing for months. James took him, not to save, but to hide." Emily's world spun. Max's small face crumpled with confusion. "Mom, who am I?" Emily's lungs burned. Her hands trembled like dead leaves in the wind. "Stop it," she whispered, barely daring to speak. But James's voice rose suddenly, cracked and desperate. "No, I saved him. I promised him." He looked down at Max, tears streaming down his face. Belle nodded sharply. Saved or kidnapped? Before Emily could answer, another sound ripped through the night. A girl, tall, fierce, with eyes blazing, stormed forward from the crowd. "Enough lies," she shouted. "Max is mine." The crowd gasped again. Emily's eyes blurred as the woman kneeled beside Max, pulling out a worn photo. Her voice cracked with fierce love. "This boy's my brother." Max looked up, eyes wild. Emily's head spun. Torn between the woman's claim and James's desperate grip, she felt the ground crumble beneath her feet. The night had twisted beyond reckoning, and now Emily didn't know who to trust, or what truth even meant anymore. The city held its breath, and the real nightmare was just waking up. Emily's eyes blurred as the woman kneeled beside Max, holding out that worn photo like a lifeline. "This boy is my brother," she said, voice cracking with fierce urgency. Max looked up, wide-eyed. Emily's world spun, a tug-of-war ripping at her chest between this fierce claim and James's desperate hold. The night felt heavy, the cold biting sharper than ever. Then, suddenly, the sharp crack of a gunshot split the air again. Heads whipped toward the edge of the park. The figures stumbled into the circle of light, clutching their chest, blood blooming there, bright and sudden. Emily gasped. It was Detective Bell. She fell hard, eyes locked on Emily and James, voice barely a whisper. "It's not over." Chaos exploded. People screamed. Someone shouted for help. The crowd surged forward, pushing, crying, panic choking the cold air. James caught Max and dove toward Bell, dropping to his knees, his face twisted in pain. Not for himself, but for her. Bell coughed, voice rasping, words sharp despite the blood on her lips. "Emily, you're not who you think you are." Emily's breath hitched. Her chest tightened. What in hell did that mean? "Your son, Max. He's not yours," Bell gasped, eyes flickering closed. The sudden quiet was heavier than the noise before. Max whimpered, clutching James's coat as if it could save him from the cold truth swirling around them. James looked up, face grave but broken. "She's lying." "No," Bell rasped, locking a fierce gaze on Emily before she slid into darkness. Emily's knees trembled, her hands shaking as she barely held Max close. The world around her twisted, her mind spinning wildly. Then, without warning, Max's small hand slipped free. He crawled from James's arms and ran toward the fallen Bell. "No, Max!" Emily screamed, but it was too late. Max knelt beside Bell, pressing his small fingers to the bleeding wound. And then, something impossible happened. Belle's eyes fluttered open, and she gasped. Eyes suddenly sharp, clear, terrifyingly alive. She smiled, cold and cruel. "Got you," she whispered. Emily recoiled as, in a flash, Belle's body twisted. Her form shimmered and flickered like a broken image. And then there was no Belle at all. There was something else, something darker. A figure stepped up where Belle had fallen, tall, shadowed, with eyes that burned with a deadly calm. The crowd froze. James's jaw clenched, but his face drained to pale. The stranger grinned, a terrible, knowing smile. "I'm no detective," the voice said, slow and jagged. "I'm the one who took Max, and I've been inside your life from the very beginning." Emily's breath caught, sharp and raw. "Why?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Because you aren't who you think you are either," the figure said, voice dropping into a hiss. "Emily, sorry to break it to you, but you're not Emily Carter. Not really." The crowd's murmur rose into confused panic. James stared at the figure, anger flaring. "What lies are you spinning now?" The stranger's gaze flicked to Max. "This boy is a key to long-buried secrets, but you, both of you, are part of the plan. Puppets dancing on strings you've never seen." Emily's world shattered inside her chest. Max looked up, or rather, looked through Emily as if she were someone else. Tears burned in her eyes as the stranger's words crashed down. "Emily, he's not even your biological son. And you were never meant to come here." The wind howled through the park like a warning. Emily stumbled, heart thundering loud enough to drown the chaos. James reached out, voice low, desperate. "This isn't real. It can't be." But the stranger shook his head, stepping forward into the flashing lights of cameras and voices. "No lies now. No games. You both are experiments, products of a secret project designed to manipulate memories, lives, even love." Silence slammed down like a hammer. Emily's knees hit the ground. The cold wasn't biting anymore. It was inside her bones, freezing everything she thought she knew. Max looked up, eyes shining with something not quite human. "Who am I?" Emily whispered, her voice breaking. The stranger smiled, cruel and calm. "That's the question you'll have to answer. But beware, because in this game, no one is innocent. And the only truth is the one you make yourself." Behind the stranger, sirens wailed lighter, shadows closing in. And there it was, the line between what's real and what's not had vanished. Emily's world was gone. Only the nightmare remained. So, who was she? Who was Max? And what dark maze had they just stepped into? Emily's breath caught in her throat. The stranger's words hung in the cold air like a frozen knife. Her knees hit the pavement again, the rough wood bench scraping against her skin through thin clothes. Max stared at the man, the thief, the liar, in her arms. Eyes oddly distant. Around them, the crowd's murmurs swelled. Cameras flashed, voices rose, sirens wailed closer. The world spun too fast. James reached out, voice low and cracked. "Emily, this isn't what you think." Before she could answer, the stranger smiled, cold, cruel, victorious. Suddenly, the lights in the park flickered once, twice, and died. Darkness swallowed the crowd whole. A shocked gasp rose from the people around them. Emily's breath came out ragged, and then a chilling voice cut through the night, calm and clear. "Welcome back," it said. Heads whipped around, searching the shadows. From nowhere, Floodlights blazed on, harsh and blinding. Emily blinked, shielding her eyes. And then she saw it. Behind the stranger, standing tall, wrapped in shadows and cold steel, the real James Thornton. Not the man holding Max. Not the man who'd been captured, arrested, accused. But another man. Stronger, sharper. A ghost from Emily's past she didn't remember. His eyes locked onto hers, blank, empty, and then he smiled. Not warm, not kind, but empty, hollow, dead. Emily stumbled back, heart thundering like a trapped animal. "No," she whispered. "You can't be." The James beside her, the one clutching Max, shifted, his face twisting in horror. "Emily," he said, voice cracking. "This isn't the first time. None of this is." The crowd fell silent, breath caught. Suddenly, the stranger moved faster than thought, ripping off a mask. It wasn't a mask. It was Emily's face. The crowd screamed. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came. She watched in frozen terror as the duplicate, her double, smiled cruelly. "I'm sorry," the other Emily said, voice cold as ice. "You were never real." The real Emily staggered, the truth bursting inside her like shattered glass. The James, holding Max, whispered again, "Emily, we've been trapped in someone else's memory, puppets in a lie we can't even understand." Max looked up then, his eyes glowing faintly under the cold light. "Mom, I remember now," he said. Emily's breath froze. "Remember what?" Max's voice dropped, lost and heavy. "I'm not the boy you think I am." Then a sudden sound, metal clashing, shouted curses, cut through the park. The other James lunged forward, grabbing the fake Emily by the arm. "Don't let them fool you," he hissed. But the crowd pulled apart as sirens closed in faster. Chaos erupted. Emily clutched Max tighter, shaking as the night spun out of control. The last thing she saw before the blackout, her own reflection staring back, smiling, dark and empty. And then, nothing. The nightmare wasn't just beginning. It had already rewritten reality. Who was real? Who was fake? And what monster had taken their places long before the park fell silent? Emily's world had shattered beyond repair. And in the cold dark, the only truth screamed louder than any lie. They had all been fooled. But how deep did the deception dig? And who would survive when the masks finally came off? Emily's breath hitched as the darkness swallowed the crowd, the park turning into a cold, endless void. The stranger's words still echoed in her ears, twisting every certainty into dust. Then, a sharp crack, a sudden, metallic snap echoed, slicing through the silence. Emily's eyes darted down. The James holding Max, clutching her wrist, suddenly went rigid. His hand locked hard, too hard. Ice burned her skin. Max screamed, his voice breaking through the cold night. Emily struggled, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She looked up and saw it, the real horror. The man clutching her wrist was no man at all. His skin rippled, shifting under the harsh lights like water. His face melted and morphed. And then, with a sickening final twist, he wasn't James. He was something else. Something inhuman. The crowd gasped, stepping back as the figure towered over Emily, eyes glowing faint red. "No," she whispered, chest tightening. "This can't be." The creature's voice, deep, guttural, and not much like any man's, slithered through the night. "You never were real, Emily," it hissed. "None of you are." Max struggled in the creature's grasp, but something inside the boy shifted, eyes flickering strange colors. Emily's head spun. Her hands trembled from the crushing cold and terror. Suddenly, from the edges of the crowd, a dozen others emerged, figures pale and twisted, with eyes like glassy voids. They moved with unnatural grace, surrounding Emily. The strangers, the people she thought she knew, none were human anymore. Emily's throat seized. The night wasn't just a trap. It was a cage. Then, without warning, the real James appeared behind the strange creature. But he looked nothing like before. His eyes glowed a fierce blue. His voice boomed, filled with terrible power. "They are echoes, copies made by the project, shadows born to replace us. The truth you chase doesn't exist where you're looking." Emily staggered backward, nearly falling. "No, Max! Where is he?" she cried, panic gripping hard. James reached out, his hand soft on her shoulder. "He's inside," James said, voice low. "Inside the program." Emily stared, confusion and dread clashing wildly. "Program?" she stammered, clutching Max close. James nodded grimly. "All of us, this town, this life, it's a simulation, a constructed lie designed to hide what's real." The crowd's murmurs turned to gasps of horror. The creature lunged forward, snarling, but James raised a hand. A burst of blue light shocked the air. The creature recoiled, screeching. Emily blinked, caught between relief and rising dread. James's eyes locked on hers, fierce but haunted. "This is bigger than us, bigger than your son or me or even this life," Max whispered, voice barely there. "Mom, I don't remember, but I know this isn't real." Emily felt tears burn her eyes. Her heart ached, a mother's love twisting into raw fear. "Then what are we?" she choked out. "If none of this is true, who are we?" James looked away, pain flaring in his gaze. Were the last fragments left? Pieces fighting to find a way out. Around them, the hollow copies closed in, voices low and chanting. Emily clenched her fists. Her mind shattered all over again. The stranger smiled, cold, cruel. "Your precious memories? Fabricated. Your love? A virus we never anticipated." Then, Max's small hand slipped free again. He took a step forward, eyes glowing softly. "I remember now," he said, voice trembling but clear. Emily blinked, heart bursting. And then, everything crashed. A blinding flash, and the world fractured like glass. Emily screamed, and when the light cleared, she wasn't in the park. She was somewhere colder, darker, alone. Except, in the distance, a voice whispered, barely audible, "Welcome back, Emily. Ready to try again?" And behind the voice, a shadow moved, watching, waiting. The nightmare never ended. It was just restarting. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the darkness swallowed the crowd, the park turning into a cold, empty void. The stranger's words echoed in her ears, twisting every certainty into dust. Then, a sharp crack, a sudden metallic snap cut through the silence. Emily's eyes snapped downward. The man holding Max's wrist went rigid, his grip locking tight, icy as steel. Max screamed, his small voice shattering the frozen night. Emily pulled, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She looked up, and her blood ran cold. The man clutching her wrist wasn't human. His skin shifted and rippled under the harsh floodlights, melting and reforming like liquid shadow. His face twisted and warped. Then, with a sickening finality, he was gone. In his place stood something else, something wrong. Deep red eyes burned into Emily's soul. "No," she whispered, frozen in terror. The creature's voice slithered out, low and guttural, nothing like a man's. "You were never real, Emily. None of you were." Max twisted and wriggled, eyes flickering strange colors no child should ever have. Emily's hands trembled uncontrollably as cold and fear swallowed her whole. From the edges of the crowd, more shapes emerged. Pale, unnatural figures, moving like ghosts. Their eyes were glassy, lifeless. They surrounded her, closing in. Emily's throat tightened. This was no trap, no nightmare on repeat. This was a cage. Suddenly, behind the creature, a figure stepped forward. The real James. But he wasn't who she remembered. His eyes glowed electric blue. His voice boomed, powerful and sharp. "They are echoes, copies made by the project. Shadows meant to replace us. The truth you chase isn't real." Emily staggered back, heart thrumming hard. "No! Where's Max?" she cried, voice cracking. James's hand touched her shoulder gently. "He's inside," James said softly. "Inside the program." Emily blinked up at him, confused and desperate. "Program?" James nodded, grimly. "All of this. This town, this life, it's all a simulation. A lie built to hide what's really going on." The crowd gasped, voices breaking into panic. The creature lunged, snarling. James raised a hand. A blinding blue light exploded, sending the creature shrieking backward. Emily gasped, caught between relief and rising dread. James looked at her, his eyes fierce but haunted. "This is bigger than any of us, bigger than Max or me or even this life." Max leaned close, whispering weakly, "Mom, I don't remember, but I know this isn't real." Tears burned Emily's eyes. Her chest ached, love twisting into raw fear. "Then what are we?" she choked. "If none of this is true, who are we?" James looked away, pain flashing in his gaze. "We're the last pieces, fragments trying to find a way out." The hollow copies closed in like shadows, voices low and chanting. Emily clenched her fists, mind splintering once again. Then Max's hand slid free. He stepped forward, eyes glowing softly. "I remember now," he said, voice trembling but clear. Emily's heart exploded. And then a blinding flash ripped through the world. The park shattered into 1,000 shards of light. Emily screamed. When the light faded, she wasn't in the park. She wasn't anywhere she recognized. She lay on a cold, metal floor, lights harsh and sterile above her. Her breath came fast and shallow. A voice whispered, soft, chilling, "Welcome back, Emily. Ready to try again?" Emily's head turned slowly. There, just beyond her reach, stood the real James. Not the man who'd held Max, not the man who'd been arrested and accused, but a stranger. His eyes were empty, distant. Then her gaze dropped to the side and froze. Max wasn't there. Instead, a small screen flickered on the wall. Images flashed, blurry but clear enough to see. Emily herself lying in a hospital bed, tubes snaking from her arms, and next to her, a baby crib. But the occupant inside was not a child. It was Max, sleeping, but not asleep, because on the crib side, a label stared back. Patient 0, subject Maxwell Harper. Emily's chest tightened, a scream caught in her throat. Behind her, the chilling whisper floated again. "They created you, us, even him. It was never real." Her knees hit the floor hard. The line between memory and nightmare vanished. Emily looked up, her voice barely a breath. "Who am I?" But no one answered. In the sterile silence, one truth was clear. The nightmare wasn't just restarting. It was rewriting everything. And the biggest lie of all was that any of this was hers to lose. The question burned deep, sharp, and endless. What if Max wasn't her son at all, but something she was meant to protect or destroy? Emily's world had cracked open, and inside, something dark waited, hungry, watching, ready. Emily's breath hitched as the cold metal floor pressed against her skin. Her heart thundered so loud she thought it might burst free. Around her, the sterile lights hummed, shadows shifting in the corners, like ghosts waiting to strike. Max's small hand slipped from hers, his wide eyes glazed and distant, like he was half a world away. Then James stepped forward. Not the man who'd held Max, but the real James, the one with hollow eyes and a face carved from pain and iron. His voice cut the silence, low and urgent. "We don't have much time," he said. They built this prison, this fake world, to trap us, to erase who we are. But it's breaking. We're breaking. Emily's hands trembled, cold and weak. What do we do? How do we get out? James reached for her, steadying her trembling frame. Hold on to what you know. Your fear, your love, your pain. Those are real. Even here, they're the key. Max's eyes flickered, a flash of life breaking through the fog. He looked at Emily, a spark of recognition, then turned to James. "Daddy?" he whispered, voice cracking. Emily swallowed hard, tears burning hot. She took a breath, gripping Max tight. The world around them rumbled. Walls flickering, lights pulsing, like the whole system was tearing apart. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward. Creatures, copies, echoes, all trying to drag them back into nothingness. James stepped between them and Emily and Max, eyes blazing blue, power surging. "Not today," he growled. A flash of light blasted the shadows back. The air tasted like ozone and fire. Emily's chest heaved. She felt pain ripping through her bones, but also a strange warmth, a hope. "We can break this," James said, voice rough but certain. "Together. But it means choosing who you are, you and Max." Emily looked at Max, his small face shining with a courage she hadn't seen before. She whispered, "We fight. We find out the truth." The world cracked open beneath their feet. Then, silence. For a moment, it was just the three of them, broken, scared, but alive. Then the lights flickered back to life. The cold metal room dissolved, replaced by early morning sunlight streaming through a hospital window. Emily's fingers curled around Max's soft hand. He blinked, real and warm beside her. She looked out at the world, uncertain, fragile, but theirs. James was gone, but his words stayed. Hold on to your fear, your love, your pain. They had survived the nightmare, for now, because somewhere beyond the walls, the real battle had only just begun. Okay, friends, if you're still here, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single twist in our upcoming exclusive stories. There's no time like this moment to hit that red button and join the family. Smash that like button right now. Every tap pushes us up the algorithms, helping more people discover this wild ride. And flood the comments with your reactions, your theories. Tell me what you think happened, who you trust, and what you want next. I love reading every word you write. It matters more than you know. Finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video. Send it to at least 5 friends who need to see how it ends. Only true fans understand how powerful your support really is. This is the moment to show up with everything you've got. Because trust me, what's coming next? You cannot afford to miss it.